سپاسگزارم آقای دکتر آهی از زمانی که گذاشتین، نکات بسیار ارزشمندی که امروز با ما به اشتراک گذاشتین. سخنران سوم امروز ما خانم نادره شاملو، مشاور بین‌المللی اتلانتیک کانسل و عضو شورای بین‌المللی و مشاور ارشد سابق بانک جهانی هستند که در طول 33 سال فعالیت حرفه‌ایشون ایشون در مدیریت اقتصادی، حاکمیت شرعی، توسعه بخش خصوصی، بازارهای مالی، محیط زیست، زیرساخت و جنسیت نقش‌های مدیریتی فنی و هماهنگی‌اش مشاوره‌ای داشتم. تجارب منطقه‌ای ایشون شامل آمریکای لاتین، آسیای جنوبی شرقی، اروپا، خاورمیانه و شمال آفریقا است. ایشون همچنین نویسنده مقالات علمی برجسته، سخنرانی در کنفرانس‌های بین‌المللی، عضو هیئت مدیره سازمان‌های غیرانتفاعی هستند که در زمینه تحقیق توانمندسازی و نوآوری فعالیت می‌کنند. سال 2015 ایشون موفق به دریافت جایزه Making a Difference از International Alliance for Women شدن و موضوع سخنرانی امروزشون با ما تثبیت فوری و توانمندسازی اقتصادی یا Immediate Stabilization and Economic Empowerment. خواهش میکنم.
متاسفانه من باید به انگلیسی صحبت کنم. خیلی میبخشین ولی همه زندگی من تو این 50 سالی که اینجا هستم به انگلیسی بوده و متاسفانه من فارسیم به خوبی آقای دکتر آهی و آقای دکتر سید نیست. خیلی میبخشین از این لحاظ، ولی خب انشالله که دفعه های بعد فارسی من بهتر خواهد شد. خیلی متشکر از دعوت و خیلی متشکر از ارگنایزرهایی که اینجا هستن و این همایش رو تونستن انجام بدن. I will switch to English and I have to also admit that my slides are going to be far less inspiring than the slides of previous speakers. But let's start with thinking that what if we were to wake up one morning and we hear of a total economic meltdown in our country, in our beloved country. It has happened in other countries, and it's also listening to news from Iran. It's not so unlikely. So it could be happening any day, unfortunately. And so what do we do, and how do we want to renovate, reconstruct, innovate the Iranian economy? I would like to kind of share with you a few slides as to where were we before or where are we today, and what kind of pitfalls and lessons we can learn from other countries that I hope will guide us a little bit in this process. Well, my first slide is about Iran's declining economic footprint, if I were to call it like that. According to the IMF in 1980, and this is a couple of years after, or at least after the revolution, it could have been even higher before the revolution, Iran's share of global GDP at purchasing power parity. Some may say, well, this is why not use a different metric? But nonetheless, this is a metric that would allow us to look at trends and levels in a way. Iran's economic footprint in 1980 was 1.8% of global economy. It has shrunk to 0.8%, so less than half of what it used to be. At the same time, other countries, and I choose here Turkey and Korea because very often we compare Iran to these two countries, has risen from, they were far, I don't need to repeat the numbers here, but you can see both these countries were far below Iran in terms of their economic power footprint in the global economy, and they have risen to this high level. Unfortunately, there are many, factors that have been already mentioned by the previous speakers and very nicely elaborated on, which we hope to be addressing in the coming years. But definitely, Iranians would want in future of Iran to have a much more powerful economy, much more of a say in the global economy, and I will come back to this figure later on. So this is one of the facets that we need to work on. And if I can figure out the next one. Another factor has been another sort of like, I would say, disappointing outcome has been a declining average income of Iranians. And as you can see here, between 1950, which is the start of this figure here, of this graph here, until about 1980, Iranians experienced a sort of steady growth, and at times even an impressive growth of the average income, and the sudden precipice after the revolution, and essentially a kind of leveling off since then. At the same time, during the same period, you can see how Turkey and Korea have been able to increase average income per their citizen. So again, coming back, increasing average income of Iranians would definitely be one of the factors or one of the success measures that we want to achieve in the rebuilding of Iran. And the third point is income inequality. Here again, this figure shows the income, the red line is the pre-tax income of the top 10%. And the blue line underneath is the average income, or sorry, pre-tax income of the bottom 50%. And as you can see, there is a huge difference. Again, bridging income inequality is another one of those facets. Income inequality is a very, I would say, polarizing issue in any society, even in the United States, as you can see. But definitely, this is one of those areas that we need to work on. And here I show, for instance, Turkey has a much lower income inequality, though still widening. And here is Korea, where you can see that the bottom 50%, the share of the bottom 50% is slowly rising. So to sum up, is like the long-term success factors or success metrics that we would like to focus on, because if we don't know what we want to focus on, we would not be able to put the range of policies that are necessary to achieve those goals, is to elevate Iran's economic power, to raise income, Iranians' income, and to achieve a better, a more just society, reduce income inequality. Now, there are no shortages of problems, and Dr. Ahi and Dr. Sid mentioned this, and hopefully we will be, with your help and with the help of those who are listening to us or who would like to work on this topic, we will be able to find measures to address this in the future, but nonetheless, delivering public safety and national security would be one among the additional facets that, in addition to what Dr. Ahi mentioned, building public trust, which has been totally eroded in the last decades, and building effective institutions, promoting political stability, and achieving differences, or at least bridging differences through peaceful means, engaging with all stakeholders at the society, and of course also complying and observing international standards, because that way we can compare, or we can attract greater foreign investment, and of course also domestic investment. So there will be many challenges to come, and I'm sure that there will be, as we move forward, there will be even more. This thing is very, very sensitive to touch, but anyway, so I wanted to come to this slide anyway. So what are some of the pitfalls? Dr. Ahi already mentioned the issue of transparency, and I would like to say that the cancer of corruption, and that's what I would like to call it, is a serious issue in Iran. And what can be done about it? When you look at sort of this corruption literature everywhere. They said, well, you should put in a corruption institute, you should put, laws, you should have a very effective civil society, you should have watchdogs. Well, Iran has on the books all of these factors. It has established an anti-corruption headquarters. It has signed on to the UN anti-corruption conventions. It has prosecuted corruption cases. We have every now and then, people being in jail or even being executed for very gross or extremely outrageous corruption cases. People are the civil society is vigilant, but it still is not enough. So we have to change this, and we have to focus on the cultural issues. Iran has a long history of corruption, and we need to focus on how to eradicate, not just by putting boxes or institutions or signing laws, but to really change the cultural aspects of the population, of the people, in how to not tolerate corruption, to become more like the Swedes rather than some of the other African or even Latin American, or even here in the United States, we are moving in that direction. So yet corruption persists and more needs to be done. And I think that this issue deserves an entire conference by itself and much more attention. Now, there are other pitfalls, and I would like to kind of looking at the population pyramid of Iran. I would like to address this as the graying of the population. We need to have different policies to address the graying of the population. We have a very I would say youth bulge, in the sense that we have very many job seekers in the sort of like in the prime of their life, both men and women. The issues that we need to address for men are a little bit different than the issues that we need to address for women, and I come back to it. And we have a very sort of narrowing of the younger population, which means that over time we are going to have a rising, if not already, but a rising dependency ratio in the sense of the workforce shrinking. So these are some of the issues that we need to take into account in looking at policies and implementing policies and making them effective. So in some countries which have had to go through transition, not paying attention to these different aspects has led to essentially failures of the transition process, of bringing about an effective market economy. And we need to take into account that when you transition, like for instance was the case in Russia, when older generation of citizens become extremely poor, it affects I would say the image of reforms. It affects the feeling of people that they're moving in the right direction, and that resulted in a way in creating a backlash against the reforms, and of course also later on in kind of a nostalgia and a return to autocracy and to non-market market forces. So definitely focusing on social safety nets, focusing on, as Dr. Ahi was mentioning, focusing on the well-being of citizens is critical. It's not just that we promote growth and everything is going to take care of itself. It would have to be very much segmented and see what can be done. There will be vulnerable people. Reforms always create losers and winners, and among the losers, how do we care? How do we take care of those who will be disproportionately affected by the negative aspects of the reforms? Again, conditional cash transfers. I have already moved to the second, to my next slide, which is about creating jobs for young men. And I highlight young men because Iran has a very high unemployment of young men. I think 10 to 15% unemployment rate of the youth. And experience in after Arab Spring as well as other countries has shown that idle young men are very prone to extremism and to radicalism, and one needs to look at this subgroup of the population differently. Even in a country like Tunisia, which is very secular, more secular than other Arab countries, this issue was a serious problem to the point that Tunisia supplied, I would say supply is probably the wrong word, but the percentage or the per capita recruits into ISIS from Tunisia were far higher than any other Arab country. So taking care on, or at least promoting labor-intensive sectors like tourism, like infrastructure, like public works, in the beginning of the reform agenda, in order to keep this this cohort active and employed, is very critical, and it can be not taking care of this issue could derail a reform process. Now I come to my favorite topic, which is that in the future of Iran, women must play a much bigger role. I show here, this is based on the world database, War Inequality Database. Iranian women contribute about 7% of national income. When we compare it to Turkey, which is almost close to 30%, and Korea, which is also 35%, it is far lower. And the Iranian female population has the capacity to contribute more, but is being held back. According to the gender equality database of the World Economic Forum, Iran ranks really low, even though you see the high numbers, but the high numbers means that it is worse off. Among the 146 countries that are being ranked, Iran ranks, in the 140th. We can do better. We must do better. Particularly, and here I want to focus more on the economic participation and economic contribution of women. That Iran has one of the lowest labor force participation rates of women in the world, about 16%. Even Saudi Arabia has a higher percentage of women in the labor market. Now, the importance of increasing this participation rate over time is very critical, and here I would like to refer to the International Monetary Fund's 2017 report, the Article 4, which is the flagship report of the International Monetary Fund about each country, that it specifically highlighted this issue and said that IMF estimates that better female economic participation could boost Iran's GDP by 40%. This is not an insignificant amount. I know that most of you are economists, and we know that how much we try to increase, growth rates by 1%, by 0.5%. This means that we have such an incredibly important potential of helping. Iranians and all of the factors that I mentioned before. And what is the cause of that? According again to the World Bank and International Finance Corporation's report, which is a bi-yearly survey of all countries about legal issues that prevent women or help women to access economic opportunities. Iran has one of the highest numbers of gender-based hurdles. So we all know that the business environment in Iran is very cumbersome. It's very difficult. It's very, I would say, you need to belong to different groups and so on, and it's not easy for anybody for men even to start a business. But for women, it stated. So let me just go back. Women face an additional 23 barriers over and above what men face. So that can explain to you why is it that we could gain 40% in our GDP if we were to be able to remove those barriers. So one of the high priority areas is actually in the future of Iran to go one by one in all of the areas of reform that we are considering to remove these barriers, because that is pent-up capacity that we could benefit from. Again, here I refer to some of the reports that the International Monetary Fund has done in terms of, the importance of women for improvements in firm level performance, in terms of importance in trade, importance in income inequality, in sort of like bridging income inequality. And to sum it up, there is even a report which says, doing it all, women boost the bottom line for home, firm, and country. So I don't want to belabor this issue, but nonetheless, there is ample evidence that in the future of Iran, this must be tackled very seriously. Then the third point, which I mentioned before, the kind of the population, the dependency ratio. As you can see, the number of the number of the workforce, or the size of the workforce, is decreasing. That means that more and more of people depend on one worker. The dependency ratio is essentially the number of those who are not in the labor force over the population that is in the labor force. So as we can see, because of the population structure, the pyramid that Iran is currently, or at least will be facing in the future, the dependency ratio is going to rise because of the shrinking of the labor force, which means that we have to work with the labor force that we have so much more smarter and so much more effective. Coming back to my earlier, sort of like circling back to my first figure that I showed you, and here I have added also Saudi Arabia in order to make the point. This is again the same graph as where do we stand in terms of global footprint, in terms of economic footprint. And what I would like to show you is that, I don't know whether this can be, what I would like to show you is that sometimes people say, well, we have oil and we have natural resources and we can manage. As you can see here, where Saudi Arabia started even much better than Iran in 1980, and it has still kept its market share above what Iran has. But what it shows here is that the two countries that depended more on their workforce, on their sort of like essentially the non-resource-based economies, have done much better because of they have used their talent pool, their labor force much more effectively than the two countries that have. Let me show you here. So these are the two countries that are not resource-based, and these are the two countries that are resource-based. So as you can see, is that the true, as was mentioned also before, the true resources that we have are our people. Not so much, I mean, yes, we do have also natural resources, but we need to depend so much more on our talent pool. I have a few figures, I don't know how much time I have, but I have a few figures about Iran's talent pool, which will actually be quite surprising. Can I just move to the next? This is the historical perspective, at least it is the way that the international, it's a global talent report, and it ranks countries, it color codes countries according to their existing talent pool. And we think, as Iranians, that we have a great talent pool. But as you can see from the perspective of outsiders, Iran ranks in the lower part of the talent pool. This is something quite, I would say, we wouldn't have expected it. And the reason for that is that, I will show you here, that we do find, I will go here, we do find in terms of vocational and technical training, we do find in terms of global knowledge, which I think we all expect, we do find in terms of return, growing them and so on. But where we fail is in attracting global knowledge. During the time of, before the revolution, Iran was a mecca for, a mecca for global talent. I mean, Dubai is actually now, or some of the other countries are a global talent. But so people used to come to Iran to work in Iran. So we were able to attract talent from everywhere in the world. Now, today, what you feel is not only do we not use the talent that we have effectively, there is a great brain drain from Iran, and we are not unable to attract foreign talent. By contrast, if you can see, let's take the UAE here. UAE is able to capitalize on global talent pool much better than Iran. For instance, even Israel is able to attract more and so on. So the ability to attract global talent, not just grow our own talent, but to attract global talent is going to be very critical. So in addition to what Dr. Ahi was mentioning, not only bringing foreign investment, but also bringing foreign talent is going to be a very critical point for us to address. Last, and with that I will close. Since we are here in Silicon Valley, I came across a report by the International Monetary Fund, which looks at the artificial intelligence preparedness. And again, Iran is kind of on the it's being, it's not exact, it's not the bottom, but it's pretty close to lower, which means that not only do we not use our talents properly, but we have also not the adequate infrastructure for building on our talents. So there is going to be a great deal of challenges that we face, but most importantly, we face the challenge of utilizing our human resources and our growing potential of both men and women in our society. And with that, I would like to thank you for listening to this. Thank you so much.